If you find yourself always having to be the bigger person, chances are you're probably hanging around too many small people. And ironically, on the flip side of that, while being the bigger person, you're actually making yourself smaller for accommodating for somebody else. Now, I don't want accommodating somebody to be looked at in a negative light, but in regards to what I'm speaking on and always being the bigger person, right, is any of those situations where you find yourself having to lower yourself to somebody's incompetence or somebody's inability to apologize. Or say, for example, where you're having to apologize about something where you're completely in the right. But in order to avoid conflict, because you know that this person is unable to have a adult conversation, a mature conversation, and hold themselves accountable, you find yourself saying sorry and making yourself seem smaller in order to make them feel okay, in order to avoid conflict. And the reason I speak upon this is because this is something that I've kind of noticed that I have a tendency to do, and I've done it multiple times in my life, hand in hand with also making myself look smaller. A lot of people don't really realize that within their social circle, there are people that they actually make themselves smaller for. And I mean that in regards for, say there's an achievement or anything that you've accomplished, they will always look at it in a smaller light, or make you feel as if what it is in a smaller light. I believe there's always an individual in anybody's social circle that may even slip up, even if it's something as simple as like you consistently started going to the gym and they give a little sly remark, and we tend to overlook this, right, generally because they're our friends, they're our loved ones, or someone we care about. But it shouldn't be like that. But an example of what I'm talking about is, say for example, you're going to the gym consistently. All of a sudden, you know, they see it and they may respond, "Oh, you still a little," or "You ain't getting that big." And excuse the way that I'm talking in regards to like the way I'm pronouncing words or whatnot. You know, that's just how I am. Still, you know, we keep it professional, but at the same time, this is how I pronounce my words sometimes. But yet, you'll sit here and actually be making achievements in this world, right? You'll be sitting here making achievements in this world, and somebody always has to bring you down. I deal with this all the time inside of my life. And I think at this point, I've kind of come to the acceptance of it, or accepting the fact that I will not allow this to happen anymore. And I want you to remember, as I make these videos, they are a message from me to me, but from me to you. In my life and in our lives, there's been multiple times where we have made accomplishments and people have always made them seem so little, or not necessarily giving us the credit for it. And take me for example, I would say so far, without even gassing myself up, even just statistically, I have achieved so much at this age, right? And sometimes I like to share my achievement with others, but there is an individual or some individuals that I've been around may say something along the lines of, "Oh, you're not better than anybody. You're not doing any better than anybody. You're just like everybody else." Diminishing my accomplishments, making me seem so little. And you know, instead of clapping back, we have a tendency to not say anything back as abrasive to them, because we probably know they can't handle it. And it shouldn't even be a scenario that arises in the first place, right? But there's plenty of times where I just sit here and I bite my tongue, or matter of fact, it gets to the point where it puts us in a state of confusion where we truly start to lose the value of ourselves, or we don't truly understand the value of our accomplishments. And that's because we're accommodating somebody else, because we know that these people in the circle are going to feel some type of way. They're going to look at it, and in reality, all it is just a projection of their shortcomings. All it is just a projection of where they are lacking, to make you feel as if you're not above them, you know. And it's crazy because I have some people around that you know, make it seem like life isn't a competition or anything like that. I've even heard from some people that spew out things along the lines of, "Oh, you know, everybody's equal, we're all in the same playing field." But I'm just saying, if you put me in the race, I might run faster than the next person, and that just may be you. And guess what? When you run fast and you finish your 40 2 seconds before then, they gonna still say you ain't running too fast. But nevertheless, it's been multiple times in my life where I've been put in scenarios where I want to bask in my accomplishments, or I would like some form of acknowledgement, and I've now been comfortable with acknowledging myself, and more so noticing that God is acknowledging me by continuing to bless me with great things. But nevertheless, sometimes it's a human thing where you want the acknowledgement of some other people, and sometimes they just bring your accomplishments down. I find that in the mental confusion due to just letting these sly words slip, that is always in the back of your mind. You know, words are very powerful. Words can influence you. Influence creates thinking. Thinking creates behavior, right? And that behavior is you lowering yourself down to accommodate for them. Once again, I say you're lowering yourself down to accommodate how they would feel about the way that you're doing, the way that you're speaking. It could be anything. It doesn't necessarily even have to be something as big as far as like money or social status or anything like that. It can be something as simple as the way that you can communicate, the way that you can process things, the way that you can talk. And I've had something like that similar happen to me because, you know, I feel like I talk fairly well, especially in scenarios where, you know, the pressure is on or I got a camera on or something like that. And I've had people even say that, oh, you don't talk like somebody from your demographic. And it's like, oh, what does that mean? You're just trying to give me a backwards insult / compliment to make it seem as if, you know, I'm not supposed to be talking like this, but in reality, I'm actually doing good. So, you know, sometimes I find myself not talking in the proper way or communicating in the way that I'm communicating just like now, right? And that's me making myself smaller to make them feel comfortable. We cannot continue to do that. And once again, it comes from the mental confusion where, you know, I've even had conversations with my mother about these things where it makes us feel as if we're not necessarily doing the right thing. We always have to be the one to apologize. We always have to be the one to, you know, bite our tongues when it comes to things that we're doing because we know this person might react like this. We know somebody might think some type of way, feel some type of way. When in reality, if they're your friends, family, loved ones, they're supposed to be the ones that love, cherish, and support any of the things that you're doing. On top of that, when it comes to scenario when the stove is on, and by stove I mean it's a very tense situation where it's a matter of an apology or attention between you and the other person being brought, and they're actually in the wrong. They should be able to self-reflect and hold themselves accountable instead of a problem that they caused. You end up apologizing for, again, being the bigger person. I dwell on it multiple times because it's only so many times you can deal with being the bigger person until the frustration comes out in a negative light, unless you completely just exile it and cut it off. Because, you know, being a bigger person, it feels like a jab or a punch in the face all the time, right? But, you know, there's this saying where there's only so many times that you can punch somebody in the face and they turn the other cheek. Eventually somebody's going to put something on you. Excuse me, my phone is ringing. Let me go ahead and mute this. I'm locked in right now. That was my little brother calling, just checking in and whatnot. You know, I talk to him all the time, but nevertheless, you end up apologizing for their bad behavior. How many times do you have to do it to put your feelings aside, to put the way that you think aside in order to make them feel comfortable, even though they're the ones where the tension has come from? I've done this so many times, and I say for me personally, at this point in my life, I'm tired of it. So I hope that whoever this message reaches and whoever this resonates with, you can reflect on your social circle, that you can go ahead and say, hey, this is enough. You know, I like to be cherished. I like for people to support my accomplishments. You know, you're wrong in this situation. No longer will I continue to kneel down and make myself look smaller to accommodate for you, because you can't look at the mirror. You can't look at the person who is making the bad decisions and tell them, hey, this is enough, let's fix this. So many times, once again, where I've been the person that's in the right. And it's not just a bias. I can tell you when I'm wrong. I've been wrong multiple times. We've all been wrong to some degree, right? But in these scenarios with certain people, they will always flip a problem that they made, something that they've done to you, and make you apologize for what they've done to you. You cannot continue to make yourself look smaller. And I hope that you sit back and reflect on the people in your environment, and maybe it's time to remove them. And I say this to myself, I say this to the person on the other side of the screen once again, that maybe it is time to remove them, because you can't continue to make yourself look small. You can't continue to minimize yourself. You know how much that weighs on your mental. Again, I like to say all the time, imagine the potential that you would be able to reach. Imagine the levels that you'd be able to reach. Imagine how little stress you would have upon you by removing some of the weight on your shoulders of other people's burden. I would say other people's burdens, other people's shortcomings, or people that instead of pushing you up, they pull you down. And I found that no matter what it is, you know, whether it's been my YouTube or something, you know, I talk about how it's growing, or that little YouTube channel, or, you know, oh, you get in there? Like, no, I am there. Here I am. Like, you know, this is what I've done. You know, I'm using me as an example because, once again, this is something that's kind of personal to me. But at the same time, I see it so many times, and I hope maybe that this serves as a lesson, is that that. You can't continue to make your accomplishments small. You can't continue to be the bigger person, because the only person that's who the toll is going to be taken upon is you and your mental, and then you have to deal with it. And guess what? Those people aren't necessarily coming to save you. They're going to blame you for a problem they created that you're now dealing with because you tried to accommodate for them. Crazy how that works, right? Crazy how that works. And I don't want to find myself in that situation anymore. And I'm just kind of, I find myself frustrated with it. It's something that I've pondered and thought about over a long time, over the last couple of weeks or whatnot, because the scenarios just keep coming up, and I feel inclined to speak about this to somebody, and maybe they realize the value in the things that they're doing, the value that they have in relationship, the value of their accomplishments. Because generally, if you have somebody trying to pull you down, generally you have somebody trying to project things upon you, it's because it's a place from where they're lacking. It's a place from where they can't turn on the accountability and say, hey, I'm going to change that. So what they do is they put it upon you, and when you come to them and you talk to them about accomplishments, or you try to have a civilized conversation, you get pointed out like the bad guy, and they try to bring you from up here to down here. And in scenarios where they're wrong, you find yourself apologizing once again for their wrongs or their lack of accountability. So you cannot continue to diminish your view of yourself and your accomplishments and make yourself seem smaller than what you are, because I promise you, the things that you are doing, once again, I've said it before, the things you're doing you are great. You know, everybody is unique individuals. We have the opportunity to do some great things, you know, whether that's just the regular things of being an outstanding human in society, such as monetary means or providing for people, all the way to where you're able to communicate effectively. These are great qualities. These are great values that a lot of people end up trying to bring you down because they can't do it. Another example that I'll get once again is the fact that I know how to communicate. I know how to communicate fairly well, and I can talk about things. But there's been so many times in relationships where my words have been flipped upon me because they don't know what I'm saying. And they've said that I make them sound dumb because the vocabulary that I have. It's not my fault that I read books. It's not my fault that I put myself in a professional background to where I can know how to communicate. But anyways, I get painted as the bad guy for knowing how to communicate. And I end up apologizing for the words that I'm saying, even though it's the reality. You know, whether it's me holding somebody accountable or it's me just having a mature conversation, I find that I end up being the one to apologize. And chances are it has happened to you before. The more you sit within and ponder upon these events that have happened, you'll find yourself coming to a point of why. And that is the question in which you ask yourself, why do you continue to allow these things to happen? Why? Really, ask yourself why. Why do you choose to make yourself feel smaller to accommodate for somebody else's shortcomings? Why do you allow their shortcomings to be projected upon you and bring you down from your height? Genuinely, why? I'm asking that a question, like, why? There truly is no actual valid and positive answer other than your overexpression of empathy and love for this person, right? Maybe you overvalue this person more than you value the respect for yourself. Maybe you overvalue this person more than you value the accomplishments for yourself, because you always having to accommodate for this person, always having to bring yourself down. And again, the question always comes is why? Why do you do such a thing? Think about that. I hope this video reached whoever it needed to reach. I haven't turned this camera on in a long time. It's been a while. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, taking some time to myself, working on me, figuring some health things out. And you know, we finally on the upward spiral when we finna start getting after it. I don't want to continue to make any promises. I'm all about action at this point. But one of the actions that I need you to do is ask the question, why? And then once you find that why, I need you to implement the following in your life. No longer will you allow yourself to be diminished and made small for somebody that is not on your level, somebody that is not at your heights, hasn't reached the peaks in which you have, somebody who isn't as capable as you. No longer will you allow yourself to be on that same level and make yourself small, just like them. That's one thing that I need you to do, from me to me, from me to you. That is one thing that I need you to do. One breath, one step, one day at a time. And on the ending point of being the bigger person, I just came from the gym. But apart from that, the channel is getting very, very big. The community is continuing to grow. I know I haven't been posting consistently or anything like that. But sometimes I need a mental break. Sometimes I need to just remove myself and focus on me. It's very hard working 12 hours, going to the gym, and then I come in and make a video. But this is something that I want to do, and now I have a better schedule, and I'm going to continue to work at it. What I say, one breath, one step, one day at a time. You know, this may be the first step. I'm taking the breaths, but this may be the first step into consistency. You know, one day at a time. This might be day one. Tomorrow I'm gonna try to make it day two, whatever topic I may be inclined to speak on. But yeah, the channel's getting bigger, the family's getting bigger, the Discord community is getting bigger. Go ahead and join the One Day community down below. And as usual, stay up. I love you. I'll catch you in the next one.